Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. For generations, sailors and villagers spoke in hushed tones of a lighthouse perched on a jagged cliff above the tempestuous sea. Its light, they claimed, was not an ordinary beam meant only to guide lost ships. Rather, it was a window, a shimmering portal into a realm of surreal beauty and hidden dangers, a world parallel to our own where time and magic intertwined. In old manuscripts preserved in crumbling libraries, the lighthouse was referred to as Eidolon's Watch. Tales recounted that on moonless nights when the fog rolled in, thick and heavy, the light would glow with a strange, otherworldly hue. It was as if the beacon beckoned not only the desperate and the wayward, but also the souls burdened by unspoken secrets, inviting them to peer into an alternate reality. Centuries ago, when the world was still young and legends walked alongside men, there lived a master builder named Thaddeus Crow. Thaddeus was renowned for his ingenuity and his insatiable curiosity about the mysteries of nature and the cosmos. One stormy night, as he labored to construct a lighthouse on the edge of a perilous cliff, a violent tempest unlike any he had seen raged over the sea. Amid the fury of wind and water, Thaddeus witnessed a strange phenomenon, a burst of radiant light emanating from the very heart of the storm, as if the heavens had split open to reveal a hidden realm. In that moment, Thaddeus understood that the lighthouse he was building must be more than a navigational aid. It must serve as a conduit between worlds. Drawing upon ancient lore and forbidden texts passed down through secretive circles, he infused the lighthouse's foundation with rare crystals and enchanted metals, setting into motion a destiny that would bridge the gap between the known and the unknown. Thus, Eidolon's Watch was born, a structure meant not only to guide seafarers home, but also to illuminate the path to another world. Legend has it that as Thaddeus completed the lighthouse, a mysterious visitor cloaked in stardust and shadow appeared at his door. This enigmatic figure, speaking in a language that resonated like distant music, foretold that the lighthouse would one day reveal a portal into a world of both wonder and peril. The prophecy warned that those who dared to step beyond the light might find their destinies forever altered, for the other world was a mirror reflecting the deepest desires and darkest fears of one's soul. Thaddeus, filled with both awe and trepidation, vowed to honor the prophecy by ensuring that Eidolon's Watch would stand as a guardian of both realms. Nestled in a rugged cove below the lighthouse was the town of Seabourn, a humble community of fishermen, traders, and dreamers. The people of Seabourn lived with a cautious reverence for the lighthouse. By day, its towering silhouette provided a sense of security against the treacherous rocks below. But as dusk fell, its light took on a magical quality that stirred both wonder and quiet dread. Among the townsfolk was a young woman named Annalise Gray, whose life had been marked by both beauty and sorrow. Orphaned as a child and raised by her kindly grandmother, Annalise had grown up listening to the whispered legends of Eidolon's Watch. She felt inexplicably drawn to the lighthouse, as if its light held answers to the questions that plagued her heart. Questions about her lost parents, about destiny, and about the nature of the unseen world. Every day in Seabourn was governed by the relentless pulse of the sea and the constant presence of the lighthouse. At dawn, the town awoke to the soft glow of the early light, and fishermen set out in weathered boats, their minds filled with both hope and anxiety. At night, when the full brilliance of Eidolon's Watch bathed the cliffs in a spectral radiance, the villagers felt an inexplicable pull toward the edge of their known world. They spoke in cautious tones of those rare souls who, driven by fate or curiosity, ventured too near the cliffside, and were said to have glimpsed the shimmering portal into another realm. As Annalise matured, the lure of the lighthouse grew ever stronger. In quiet moments, she would wander up the winding path that led from Seabourn to the base of Eidolon's Watch, her eyes fixed on the colossal structure that had defined her childhood. Late at night, beneath a canopy of stars, she would sit in silence, listening to the rhythmic sound of the waves crashing against the cliffs, as if the ocean itself whispered secrets of a realm beyond. Annalise's longing was more than mere curiosity. It was a deep-seated need to understand her own place in a universe where the boundaries between worlds were fluid. The stories of the old seafarers, the cryptic prophecies of the ancient texts, and the subtle shifts in the lighthouse's glow all conspired to ignite within her a burning desire to seek the truth. Could it be that the light was more than a guide to home, and instead a doorway to destiny? One fateful evening, as the horizon blushed with the colors of twilight, Annalise encountered a mysterious figure on the cliffside near the lighthouse. Dressed in a flowing cloak that shimmered like moonlight and with eyes that held the depth of untold stories, the stranger introduced himself simply as Alaric. With a gentle yet compelling voice, Alaric spoke of his own journey, a quest to explore the other world that lay beyond the light of Eidolon's Watch. He revealed that he had once been like her, haunted by questions and driven by a yearning to transcend the confines of his mortal existence. According to Alaric, the lighthouse was indeed a portal, but only on certain nights when the fabric between worlds was at its thinnest. He urged Annalise to join him on a journey that would take her far beyond the familiar shores of Seabourn and into a realm where the rules of reality were rewritten by magic and possibility. Guided by Alaric, Annalise prepared for an expedition that would change her life forever. In the dead of night, under a sky illuminated by a full, luminous moon, the pair made their way to the base of the lighthouse. The air was charged with anticipation, and the very atmosphere seemed to shimmer with unseen energies. Alaric explained that when the lighthouse's light reached its zenith, it would create a portal, a rip in the veil that separated the two worlds. As the moments ticked by, Annalise and Alaric positioned themselves at the very edge of the cliff. Suddenly, the beacon of Eidolon's Watch blazed brighter than ever before, and a column of iridescent light erupted from its pinnacle, cascading down in a shimmering curtain. With a mix of exhilaration and trepidation, Annalise stepped forward. In that instant, the world around her blurred into a vortex of colors and sounds, and she felt as if she were being drawn through a tunnel of light. When her vision cleared, she found herself standing on a shore unlike any she had ever known, a land where the sky pulsed with hues of violet and teal, where gravity seemed a gentle suggestion rather than a rule, and where the air was filled with the fragrance of strange, otherworldly blooms. The other world, which Annalise later learned was called Elysiara, was a realm of breathtaking beauty and mysterious wonder. Vast landscapes stretched before her, rolling hills of iridescent grass, forests of crystalline trees, and rivers that flowed with a gentle luminescence. The sky, a canvas of ever-changing colors, was alive with drifting clouds that seemed to sing in silent harmonies. In Elysiara, the rules of time and space were fluid. People moved with a grace that defied earthly limitations, and every living being carried a spark of magic that connected them to the natural rhythms of the world. Alaric explained that Elysiara was a realm of possibility, a place where those burdened by the weight of regret and sorrow could rediscover hope and purpose. As Annalise explored this new land, she encountered inhabitants of Elysiara, beings both human and fantastical, each with their own stories of loss, redemption, and the eternal quest for meaning. A wise elder named Calum, with eyes like twin galaxies, told her that every soul had a journey, and that sometimes the path to healing led through worlds unknown. In Elysiara, Annalise soon realized that the journey was not solely an exploration of a new landscape, but a journey inward. The realm, with all its splendor and magic, was also a mirror to her soul. As she traversed enchanted forests and climbed luminescent hills, she encountered challenges that forced her to confront the hidden depths of her own heart, fears, regrets, and the silent sorrows that had haunted her since childhood. One such trial took place in the Valley of Echoes, a place where every thought and emotion was magnified into a chorus of voices. Here, Annalise was forced to face the grief of losing her parents, the pain of loneliness, and the lingering doubt about her own worth. In a moment of profound catharsis, as the winds carried the echoes of her sorrow across the valley, she learned that accepting her past was the only way to free herself from its grip. It was a painful lesson, but one that allowed her to emerge stronger and more whole. Throughout her trials, Annalise forged deep bonds with the inhabitants of Elysiara. Alaric, ever her guide and mentor, revealed that he too had once been lost in the darkness of his own regrets. Together they encountered other travelers, rebels, poets, and mystics, each on their own quest for healing. They gathered around communal fires, shared stories under starlit skies, and offered one another comfort in moments of vulnerability. One such companion was Lyra, a gentle healer whose compassionate touch could mend both physical and emotional wounds. Her quiet strength and unwavering belief in the power of renewal inspired Annalise to trust in the promise of this strange, otherworldly realm. With every challenge they overcame, the bonds between them grew, and the once daunting journey became a shared pilgrimage of hope and transformation. After what felt like an eternity in Elysiara, the time came for Annalise to face a choice. The portal from which she had emerged, Eidolon's Watch, remained active, its light still pulsating with the magic of the two worlds. Alaric explained that the portal would not remain open forever. To return to Seabourn and to share the wisdom of Elysiara, Annalise had to choose whether to stay in this realm of healing or to go back to the world she had once known. A world still shrouded in sorrow, but also full of possibilities for redemption. The thought of leaving the luminous embrace of Elysiara was painful, yet Annalise knew that her journey was not meant to be an escape from her past, but a bridge to a future where the lessons she had learned could light the way for others. With a heavy heart, yet a spirit emboldened by transformation, she decided to return. In a final tearful farewell, Annalise and her newfound companions gathered at the portal. Salem, the wise elder, bestowed upon her a small talisman, a delicate crystal that pulsed with the soft light of Elysiara, as a reminder that the magic of that world would always reside within her. With a promise to one day return and reunite with those who had helped her heal, she stepped back through the shimmering column of light. The journey back was both surreal and bittersweet. As the portal closed behind her, Annalise found herself on the rugged cliffs near Eidolon's Watch, under a night sky that now seemed less oppressive and more filled with the quiet promise of dawn. The lighthouse, ever the silent sentinel, continued to shine its otherworldly beam into the darkness, a reminder of the connection between the two realms. Back in Seabourn, Annalise's return sparked a subtle yet profound transformation. The villagers, long resigned to the melancholy of their coastal existence, found new hope in the stories she shared, the tales of a realm where healing and magic reigned. Inspired by her journey, others began to look to the lighthouse, not just as a guide through stormy seas, but as a beacon of possibility, a portal to an inner world where every heartache could give way to renewal. Annalise became a cherished storyteller and a quiet leader in her community. Her journal, filled with vivid accounts of Elysiara and the trials of self-discovery, was passed from hand to hand, a source of comfort and inspiration for those grappling with their own darkness. The lighthouse, with its ever-pulsing beam, stood as a living symbol of the bridge between worlds, a reminder that no matter how lost one might feel, there is always a path to transformation. Over time, the legend of Eidolon's watch grew, interweaving the destinies of Seaborn and Elisiara into a tapestry of shared hope and enduring magic. Scholars and dreamers from distant lands journeyed to the lighthouse, seeking not only to understand its arcane secrets, but also to catch a glimpse of the other world, a realm where the heart's true desires and fears were laid bare. In quiet moments before dawn, when the first hints of light danced across the horizon, Annalise would often stand atop the cliffs, gazing at the lighthouse. In its steady glow, she saw the reflection of two worlds intertwined, a reminder that while she had left behind the realm of Elisiara, its magic would forever live on within her and in the hearts of all those who dared to dream of a better tomorrow. The tale of the lighthouse that shines into another world endures as a timeless parable, a story of transformation, of the courage to face the unknown, and of the indomitable human spirit that seeks light even in the deepest darkness. For every traveler who follows the enchanted beam of Eidolon's watch, there is a promise that no matter how daunting the path, the bridge between despair and hope is built upon the willingness to journey inward, to embrace the magic within, and to forge connections that transcend the boundaries of worlds. In every whispered legend and every shared memory of that fateful journey, the lighthouse remains a beacon, a symbol of the eternal possibility that lies just beyond the veil of what we know. And on nights when the sea is calm and the sky holds its breath, one might still see a lone figure on the cliffside, gazing into the horizon, forever reminded that even in the darkest night, another world awaits. Long before the modern villages dotted the countryside, elders whispered about a trail born of both nature and magic. In the days when gods walked among men and the wind carried ancient secrets, a mysterious pathway was said to have been laid out by the forest spirits themselves. It was believed that the trail was a gift, a way for wandering souls to find their true path when the world around them grew too confusing. The trail was not fixed, it was ever-changing, echoing the impermanence of life. Its legend passed down from generation to generation, sometimes as a fable of hope, and other times as a cautionary tale for those who dared stray too far from destiny. Some legends even claim that the trail was both a blessing and a curse. When the sun was high, the trail was steady and familiar, a route to known villages and fields ripe with harvest. But at dusk, when shadows lengthened and the world softened into dreamlike hues, the trail would shift as if awakening from a deep slumber. Those who followed it in the twilight risked being led astray from all that was familiar, only to find themselves at a crossroads between past regrets and future promises. In truth, this capricious change was seen by many as an invitation to embrace uncertainty, to seek out the hidden truths of the heart, and to learn that sometimes a new direction is exactly what one needs. Nestled at the edge of the enchanted woodlands lay the village of Sun's Crest, a place bathed in golden light by day and touched by melancholy at dusk. The villagers lived simple lives, tending to their fields and caring for their livestock. Yet the changing of the trail was a constant source of both wonder and quiet anxiety. Elders recounted tales of those who had followed the trail at dusk and returned transformed. A farmer who discovered new love after years of solitude, a wayward youth who found his calling in distant lands, and even a grieving widow who finally made peace with her sorrow. Among them was a young woman named Marisol, known for her kind heart and unquenchable curiosity. Since childhood, Marisol had listened to the stories of the enchanted trail with wide-eyed wonder. Every evening as the sun began to sink, she would watch from the village's ancient watchtower as a faint, shimmering light seemed to beckon toward the forest depths, a silent call to those willing to venture into the unknown. For Marisol, the call of the trail was not a distant legend, but a deeply personal summons. After losing her father to a long illuminated past and her mother to the quiet despair of illness, Marisol's heart carried both sorrow and hope. She felt that somewhere beyond the familiar borders of Sun's Crest lay answers to the questions that haunted her. Was her destiny forever tethered to the past, or could she forge a new path as fluid and unpredictable as dusk itself? Her resolve was further bolstered by the tales of transformation shared by the village elders. In the dimming light of each evening, as the trail changed direction and seemed to shimmer like a mirage, Marisol's longing grew stronger. She vowed that one day, when the moment was right, she would follow that shifting path into the heart of the enchanted woods to discover the truth behind her destiny. At the onset of autumn, when the leaves turned amber and the air grew crisp with the promise of change, Marisol decided that the time had come. With a small pack containing provisions, her father's old compass, and a leather-bound journal to record her journey, she bid farewell to her family and the familiar comfort of Sun's Crest. The villagers gathered at the edge of the woods, offering blessings and bittersweet farewells, for they knew that the trail was as unpredictable as it was transformative. Marisol's first steps on the path were filled with trepidation and excitement. The trail was well trodden by villagers during the day, a ribbon of dirt leading toward the forest depths. But as the sun dipped lower, the landscape began to blur and shimmer, and Marisol felt the pulse of magic beneath her feet. As dusk approached on her very first day, Marisol reached a clearing where the trail, illuminated by the last vestiges of sunlight, took an unexpected turn. Where before the path had led steadily northward, now it forked in two directions, one shrouded in deepening shadows, the other glimmering with a faint, ethereal light. With her heart pounding and her mind awash with uncertainty, she hesitated at the fork. The whisper of the wind and the soft murmur of the forest seemed to offer no clear guidance. In that moment of indecision, the sun dipped below the horizon and the enchanted magic of dusk took hold. The trail shimmered as if alive, its dust swirling in graceful eddies that defied gravity. Marisol chose the path that glowed with the faint light, a decision that would mark the beginning of her transformation. As Marisol followed the luminous path, the forest around her transformed into a realm that straddled the line between waking life and dream. The trees, once rigid and familiar, now bent in gentle arcs as if bowing to some unseen force. Shadows stretched and intertwined with beams of silver moonlight, creating patterns that shifted with every step. The air was perfumed with the scent of wild jasmine and damp earth, and every rustle of leaves whispered secrets of a time when magic was raw and unbound. In this enchanted twilight, the trail continued to change direction in subtle yet profound ways. At one juncture, it led her along a bubbling brook whose waters glowed with an inner radiance. At another, it ascended a gentle slope, offering a panoramic view of the valley below, where the lights of Sun's Crest twinkled like distant memories. With each change in direction, Marisol felt as if the trail was not merely a path in the physical world, but a guide through the labyrinth of her own heart and soul. On her journey, Marisol encountered a myriad of fellow wanderers, souls who, like her, had been drawn to the mysterious allure of the shifting trail. There was an elderly man named Amon, whose eyes sparkled with the wisdom of countless journeys. Amon told tales of a time when he, too, had followed the trail at dusk and had discovered hidden truths about the nature of hope and despair. His stories were full of melancholy laughter and bittersweet memories, and his gentle advice offered Marisol both comfort and caution. Another traveler was a young poet named Soren, whose words flowed as effortlessly as the river that bordered the trail. Soren believed that the changing direction of the path was a metaphor for the endless possibilities of life, a reminder that one's destiny was not fixed, but fluid and ever-evolving. He recited verses that captured the beauty of impermanence, and in his presence, Marisol felt a stirring of creative inspiration. Together, these wanderers shared campfires beneath the vast twilight sky, exchanged stories of loss and renewal, and marveled at the enigmatic magic of the trail. Their shared experiences bound them in a fellowship of the lost and the hopeful, a kinship forged in the transformative light of dusk. As the journey progressed, the trail began to present challenges that were as much about the inner world as the outer landscape. At one critical juncture, the path split once more into two divergent routes. One route led into a dense, somber woodland, where the air was heavy with the scent of decay and the soft murmur of regret. The other opened into a sunlit glen, aglow with a gentle promise of renewal and possibility. Marisol, her heart heavy with memories of past failures and unhealed wounds, felt the pull of the gloomy path. The forest of regret seemed to call to her with the familiarity of sorrow. Yet the glen shimmered with a promise she could scarcely believe, a promise of a future where she could finally let go of the burdens that had weighed her down. With trembling determination, she chose the path toward renewal, accepting that to overcome her pain, she must first acknowledge it. Further along the trail, as dusk deepened into night, the path led to a narrow wooden bridge suspended over a dark, reflective chasm. The water below was as still as glass, and in its depths, Marisol saw her own reflection. Only not as she was, but as she might become if she surrendered to despair. The vision was haunting, a gaunt figure with eyes devoid of hope, lost in an endless cycle of regret. Summoning all the courage she could muster, Marisol paused on the bridge. There, under the watchful gaze of the starry sky, she confronted the specter of her potential downfall. In a cathartic moment of truth, she spoke aloud the fears and regrets that had haunted her for years. The sound of her voice, carried by the wind over the reflective chasm, seemed to break the spell of darkness. Slowly, the vision in the water softened, replaced by an image of herself bathed in gentle light, her eyes filled with determination and the promise of new beginnings. After many days of walking, the shifting trail led Marisol to a vast clearing. Here, the enchantment of dusk seemed to pause. The trees stood in solemn vigil around a smooth, flat stone that served as a natural altar. In this hallowed space, the trail had finally gathered all its mysterious energies, and the air shimmered with the resonance of countless journeys. In the clearing, Marisol discovered an ancient inscription carved into the stone, a message left by those who had walked this path long before her. The inscription read, "In the twilight of despair, when the heart is heavy and the soul is lost, the path may change to guide you home. Embrace the unknown, and in the shifting light, find the promise of a new day." The words, etched by hands long faded into memory, filled her with a profound sense of purpose. She realized that the trail's capricious changes were not meant to confound her, but to lead her toward moments of revelation and healing. In that moment, Marisol understood that the journey itself was the destination, a never-ending process of growth, loss, and transformation. As Marisol sat in quiet contemplation in the clearing, the first light of dawn began to filter into the sky, a rare and fleeting glimpse of hope that seemed almost miraculous in a land where the sun had long set on certainty. The trail, bathed in the soft hues of morning, appeared to stand still, as if waiting for her decision. With newfound resolve, she stepped forward, embracing the change with a heart open to both the beauty and the pain of life. It was in that sacred moment of rebirth that the trail shifted one final time, a gentle curve that led her out of the enchanted woods and toward a horizon awash with the subtle promise of sunrise. Though the sun itself had not yet emerged, the path glowed with the tender light of possibility, and Marisol knew that her journey was only beginning. Years later, the tale of the shifting trail became a cherished legend in Sun's Crest and beyond. Travelers, poets, and dreamers spoke of the enchanted path that changed direction at dusk, a symbol of life's unpredictable twists, of the beauty hidden within uncertainty, and of the courage required to forge a new destiny. Marisol, now a wise storyteller with silvered hair and eyes that still held the spark of adventure, shared her experiences with anyone willing to listen. She taught that every journey, no matter how long or arduous, was a tapestry woven from both sorrow and hope, and that even when the way forward was unclear, the path would reveal itself in time. The enchanted trail continued to change with each passing dusk, its magic undiminished by the years. New generations would set out along its winding paths, driven by the same restless desire to discover what lay beyond the known horizon. And though the trail's direction was ever shifting, sometimes leading to joyful meadows, at other times into shadowed glens, it always carried with it the promise that even the most uncertain path could lead to profound transformation. On quiet evenings, when the twilight draped the land in a soft, otherworldly glow, one might still see a lone figure walking the trail, a silent wanderer embracing the mystery of life, ever mindful that the journey itself was the true destination. For in that eternal dance of dusk and dawn, the trail whispered its timeless secret, that in every change, in every twist of fate, there lies the potential for rebirth, and that every lost soul can, in the end, find its way home. Long ago, in a forgotten age when magic ruled the earth and the spirits of the departed walked openly among mortals, a master craftsman named Cassian Verrill created a mask unlike any other. He was renowned throughout the land for his skill in blending rare metals with enchanted gemstones, forging objects that could channel the mystical forces of life and death. But Cassian's greatest work would come at a terrible cost. In the depths of despair after the untimely loss of his beloved, Lady Isolde, Cassian sought solace in forbidden lore. In his grief, he turned to ancient texts that promised to reunite him with the lost soul of his love. Desperate to bring Isolde back from the realm of shadows, he fashioned a mask imbued with dark incantations and eldritch power. The mask was crafted from silver that glistened like frozen tears and inlaid with obsidian and ruby shards that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Legend has it that upon its completion, the mask absorbed a part of Cassian's own soul, and in doing so, it became a conduit for the spirits of the dead. Cassian soon discovered that the mask's power was far greater and far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. When worn, the mask allowed its bearer to see and speak with the dead, yet it came with a harrowing price. Every soul that had passed beyond the veil was inexorably drawn toward the mask's dark allure. Once touched by its magic, the souls of the departed would find themselves bound to the mask, unable to rest, forced to wander the realm of the living as echoes of pain and longing. The mask did not simply offer communion with the dead, it enslaved them. Over time, its curse spread like a virulent plague. Entire families were haunted by the unending presence of those who could not depart, and the mask's legend became a cautionary tale among seers and shamans alike. They spoke in trembling voices of its ability to steal away one's own soul, to trap it in a prison of eternal sorrow if the mask fell into the wrong hands. Overcome by guilt and horror at what he had unleashed, Cassian Verrill tried desperately to destroy his creation. But the mask, bound by the dark magics of the old world, proved indestructible. In a final act of despair, Cassian cast himself into a raging river, hoping that its currents would carry him far from his cursed work. Yet even as his body was claimed by the waters, whispers tell us that his soul remained forever tethered to the mask, a doomed warden of the spirits he had so tragically bound. For centuries after Cassian's tragic end, the mask vanished from the annals of history, its existence known only in half-remembered legends and the fevered dreams of those who dared to seek forbidden knowledge. It was said to wander from one dark corner of the realm to another, occasionally discovered in the dusty vaults of ruined castles, hidden in the relics of forgotten abbeys, or passed secretly between desperate souls who wished to speak with those who had died. Each bearer of the mask soon found themselves tormented by spectral visitations, and the unyielding weight of lost souls. Some claim to have heard the anguished cries of ancestors. Others saw the tormented faces of lovers separated by death. And as the mass traveled, it left behind a trail of despair, a tapestry woven from the unfulfilled longings and ceaseless grief of countless souls. In the quiet village of Raven's Hollow, nestled on the edge of an ancient forest, lived a young woman named Leora Marin. Known for her gentle spirit and quiet resilience, Leora had grown up hearing ghost stories and legends of haunted relics. Yet nothing could have prepared her for the day a mysterious package arrived at her doorstep. A small, velvet-lined box containing the mask. It came with no explanation, only a faded note in a spidery hand. To the one whose heart is heavy with loss, may this mask reveal the truth that lies beyond. Leora, whose own life had been marred by tragedy, the untimely death of her mother and the mysterious disappearance of her father, felt a shiver of both dread and longing. Though warned by the elders of Raven's Hollow about the cursed mask, she could not resist its pull. In her grief, she believed that the mask might finally help her reconnect with the loved ones she had lost. That night, under a sky heavy with the promise of storms, Leora hesitantly placed the mask upon her face. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. In the blink of an eye, her world dissolved into a maelstrom of colors and shadows. She found herself standing in a spectral mirror of Raven's Hollow, one where the veil between life and death had thinned to nothing. Around her, the air buzzed with ethereal voices, and in the distance, she saw the faint outlines of figures whose faces were blurred by sorrow. A voice both tender and haunting reached her ears. "Welcome, child of grief. We have waited for you." Leora felt both terror and a deep, inexplicable familiarity. The souls of the dead, bound by the ancient curse of the mask, had now found a vessel in her, a host through which their voices could finally be heard. In the days that followed, Leora's life became a constant dance with the spectral. At first, she was tormented by the endless barrage of voices and images. Memories of a life that was not her own, sorrows accumulated over centuries, and the anguished cries of those trapped by the mask's curse. Yet as time wore on, she began to discern patterns among the apparitions. Some were gentle, seeking comfort and closure. Others were bitter, consumed by regret and longing for vengeance. One evening, as rain hammered against the window panes of her modest cottage, Leora sat with the mask resting on her lap, trembling as she listened to the whispered secrets of the dead. A spectral figure, shrouded in translucent garments, emerged from the shadows, a man with eyes full of sorrow and a story that spanned decades. "I was once a knight," he murmured, "betrayed by those I swore to protect. I am bound here by my broken honor." And so, one by one, the souls poured forth their stories, each tale a thread in a tapestry of loss and regret that spanned the ages. With every passing day, the mask's power grew. It fed on Leora's own grief and loneliness, intertwining her destiny with that of the dead. She began to notice that her reflection in mirrors would sometimes show the faint glimmer of ghostly figures standing behind her. Souls she had not seen in the physical world, but who now walked beside her in the twilight of her existence. Friends and neighbors soon whispered that Leora had become haunted, her eyes carrying a depth of sorrow that transcended mortal life. Yet within the torment, there was a strange beauty, a profound understanding of the transient nature of life and the eternal ties that bind us, even beyond death. Leora found that through the mask, she could help the lost souls find some measure of peace. In quiet acts of compassion, she would record their stories, promise to carry their memories into the world of the living. And in doing so, she slowly began to liberate them from the relentless grip of the curse. As Leora's burden grew heavier, she sought answers in the dusty archives of Raven's Hollow's ancient library. There, among crumbling manuscripts and faded scrolls, she discovered references to an ancient ritual known as the Rite of Liberation, a ceremony designed to break the curse of the mask and free the souls bound within. The text described a treacherous journey to a sacred site known as the Hall of Echoes, hidden deep within the catacombs beneath a long-abandoned monastery. Determined to free both herself and the tormented souls, Leora resolved to undertake the perilous journey. She knew that to break the ancient bond, she would have to confront not only the dark magic that had ensnared the mask, but also her own inner demons, the unresolved grief that had drawn her into this haunted destiny. Leora was not alone in her quest. Word of her plight reached the ears of a mysterious wanderer known as Sir Rowan Ashford, a knight-errant reputed to have once battled forces of darkness and emerged victorious. Rowan, his own past marred by loss and regret, felt a kinship with Leora's struggle and offered his assistance. Alongside him came a small band of allies. Marina, a gifted clairvoyant, whose visions of the past and future were as vivid as they were cryptic. Elias, a learned sage whose knowledge of ancient rituals and forbidden magic might provide the key to breaking the curse. And Kieran, a skilled tracker and warrior, whose unwavering determination ensured that no danger would deter their path. Together they formed an unlikely alliance, united by a common purpose: to journey to the Hall of Echoes, perform the rite of liberation, and finally sever the ties that bound the souls of the dead to the cursed mask. The path to the Hall of Echoes was as treacherous as it was mysterious. The ancient monastery lay hidden in a dense forest, its crumbling walls overtaken by ivy and shadow. Beneath its ruined sanctuary, the catacombs stretched like a labyrinth of despair. Dark, silent corridors where the echoes of the past whispered warnings to those who dared enter. Leora and her companions descended slowly into the depths. The air grew colder, and the flickering light of their torches revealed haunting frescoes on the walls. Depictions of celestial battles, sorrowful saints, the eternal struggle between light and darkness. Each step forward was a test of courage and resolve, as unseen forces seemed to tug at their very souls. After what seemed like an eternity wandering through winding passages, they reached a vast, domed chamber, the fabled Hall of Echoes. In the center of the hall stood a towering stone altar, its surface inscribed with arcane symbols that glowed faintly in the darkness. The chamber vibrated with an otherworldly hum, as if the very air was alive with the memories of countless souls. Marina's eyes widened as she gazed upon the altar. "This is where the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest," she whispered, her voice trembling with both awe and fear. Elias explained that the rite of liberation required each participant to confront the essence of their own sorrow, to offer it up to the altar as a sacrifice of truth. Only then would the magic of the altar have the power to unbind the curse. One by one, Leora and her allies stepped forward before the altar. The ritual demanded that each confess the deepest, darkest fears and regrets that had ever haunted their souls. For Leora, it meant facing the overwhelming grief of her past, the loss of her mother, the mystery of her father's disappearance, and the crushing loneliness that had driven her to accept the cursed mask. As she stood before the altar, tears streaming down her face, Leora recited the words she had written in her private journal, the very record of her sorrow. The altar's symbols pulsed in response, and the chamber filled with a spectral light that danced upon the stone walls. In that moment, the barrier between the living and the dead began to thin, and the anguished voices of the bound souls rose in a chorus of hope and lament. When it was time for the final act, Sir Rowan stepped forward, offering his own token of remorse, a family heirloom, a sword that had once belonged to his father, stained with the sacrifices of past battles. As the artifact was placed upon the altar, the chamber trembled, and a surge of ethereal energy burst forth. The voices of the dead, once trapped by the masked curse, swirled around them like a maelstrom of sorrow and longing. Elias, with his arcane knowledge, chanted ancient incantations that reverberated through the hall, binding the magic of the ritual into a single, potent force. Slowly, as the combined weight of their confessions and sacrifices reached its zenith, the altar's glow intensified. In a blinding flash of light, the ethereal chains that had held the souls captive shattered like glass, and a great sigh seemed to echo throughout the catacombs. For a heartbeat, all was silent. Then, as the light faded, the companions beheld a wondrous sight. The souls that had been trapped by the cursed mask now drifted free, ascending toward an unseen horizon, a final, liberating exodus into the realm of peace. Freed from its unholy burden, the cursed mask began to glow with a soft, mournful light. Leora, now trembling with a mixture of exhaustion and relief, removed the mask from her face. In its place, she felt an unexpected warmth, a sense of release and the promise of a new beginning. The mask, once an instrument of eternal torment, had lost its power over the souls of the dead. Its dark magic, undone by the collective strength and honesty of those who had faced their deepest fears, was finally broken. As Leora and her companions emerged from the catacombs into the cool light of early dawn, the weight of the past seemed to lift. The mask was left behind in the sacred hall, now nothing more than an inert relic, a symbol of what had once been, and a reminder of the power of redemption. The freed souls, visible only in fleeting glimpses to those attuned to the spiritual realm, departed with peaceful smiles and gentle farewells, their long torment finally at an end. The curse that had bound the dead was lifted, and Leora felt a profound change within herself. She was no longer haunted by the relentless whispers of sorrow. Instead, she carried within her the quiet strength of a soul that had faced the darkness and emerged transformed. News of the miraculous liberation spread throughout Raven's Hollow and beyond. The once somber village, where people had long resigned themselves to living with the lingering echoes of loss, found new hope in the tale of the mask that no longer bound the souls of the dead. The story of Leora and her allies became a beacon, a reminder that even the deepest wounds could heal through courage, sacrifice, and compassion. The ancient relic was enshrined in a modest chapel built near the ruins of the old monastery. There, visitors came to pay homage, to leave tokens of remembrance, and to reflect on the journey from despair to renewal. In time, the story of the cursed mask was woven into the tapestry of local lore, celebrated as a parable of the transformative power of confronting one's inner darkness. Leora went on to become a guide and mentor to those who struggled with the burdens of grief and regret. She authored a series of memoirs and essays detailing her journey, which were later compiled into a book titled Shadows Unbound. Her writings inspired countless others to seek out their own paths to healing, teaching that the most potent magic lay not in curses or ancient relics, but in the human heart's capacity for resilience and transformation. The once cursed mask, now a lifeless artifact, served as a potent symbol of the past, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked sorrow and the redemptive power of embracing one's pain to find hope. On quiet evenings, when the light of the setting sun mingled with the cool hues of approaching night, Leora would sit by a window overlooking Raven's Hollow. In the fading glow, she would recall the long, arduous journey, a path marked by tears, whispers of the dead, and ultimately, the liberating power of confronting one's innermost fears. Though the scars of the past remained, they were now imbued with a wisdom that lit her way forward. For every soul that had once been ensnared by the masked curse, there was now a promise that even in the darkest night, the light of a new dawn was waiting to be born, a beacon of hope to guide the lost, the grieving, and the broken toward a future of healing and renewal. Evelyn Hartley was a reserved young woman with a past filled with unspoken sorrows and a present burdened by uncertainty. Following the unexpected passing of her estranged great-uncle, a reclusive scholar known only for his cryptic research into the occult, Evelyn inherited a dusty, leather-bound journal. Its cover was etched with intricate patterns and strange symbols that she did not recognize. Though it appeared to be an ordinary diary, a heavy aura of mystery clung to it. At first, Evelyn intended to discard the journal, dismissing it as a relic of a bygone era. Yet something about the object, perhaps the weight of its secrets, compelled her to keep it. On the first night it sat on her bedside table, the journal's blank pages seemed to pulse in the dim glow of her bedside lamp. Uncertain and a little frightened, she resolved to write in it herself, hoping to uncover the memories of her family's past. That very night, as Evelyn struggled to fall asleep, the room grew silent except for the steady tick of the old clock on the wall. In the quiet darkness, she felt compelled to open the journal. With trembling fingers, she flipped to the first page. To her astonishment, in a spidery, unfamiliar script, words began to appear, as if written by an unseen hand. I fear the night when shadows grow and hope withers. I fear the mirror's reflection that reveals the truth I dare not see. Evelyn's heart pounded. Had she imagined it? The words were not her own. They were the whispers of her own hidden anxieties, laid bare in ink upon paper. Terrified yet fascinated, she clutched the journal to her chest, unaware that her life was about to change forever. In the days that followed, Evelyn discovered that the journal was no passive repository of memories. Each night, as she slept fitfully, the journal wrote down her most secret and unspoken fears. It recounted her dread of failure at work, the gnawing anxiety over loneliness, and even the inexplicable terror of an unknown presence watching her from the corners of her room. The words were intimate, personal, too personal to be the product of chance. Unable to sleep, Evelyn began to notice that the journal's entries seemed to anticipate her nightmares. One evening, she read, I fear the door that creaks open in the dead of night, heralding the arrival of what lurks beyond. I fear that the darkness holds the ghosts of my past. At that moment, as if on cue, the door in her apartment creaked open ever so slightly, sending a chill down her spine. Paralyzed with fear, she watched in horror as the journal's pages turned, as if guided by an invisible hand. It was as if the journal itself was a mirror reflecting her inner demons, a sentient object that thrived on her fear. As days turned to weeks, Evelyn's life became a torment of anxiety. Each morning, she would awake to find new entries in the journal, detailed accounts of her fears that she had not consciously entertained. The journal seemed to record not only her present dread, but also premonitions of future terror. It foretold financial ruin, the loss of loved ones, and even an obscure vision of a faceless figure stalking her footsteps. Friends and family grew concerned as Evelyn began to withdraw into herself. She could no longer enjoy the simple pleasures of life, the comforting aroma of freshly brewed tea, the laughter shared with colleagues, because every moment was clouded by the journal's relentless reminder of her deepest fears. In her isolation, she wondered whether the journal was cursed or if it was some form of dark magic intended to expose the vulnerable parts of her soul. Determined to understand the mystery behind the journal, Evelyn sought the wisdom of Professor Alistair Reed, an aging librarian reputed to be well-versed in occult lore. In the dusty back room of the town's library, surrounded by ancient tomes and brittle manuscripts, Professor Reed listened intently as Evelyn recounted her experiences. After a long pause, his eyes grew distant as he recalled a legend. There are objects in this world that are not mere inanimate things. Some are imbued with a soul, a consciousness born from the fears and desires of those who created them. Your journal, my dear, might be one of these, a vessel that captures the unspoken nightmares of its owner, a cursed mirror for the soul. Professor Reed explained that such journals had been mentioned in the obscure writings of medieval mystics and alchemists. They were known to write the unacknowledged truths of their bearers, forcing them to confront what they tried to bury deep within. The process, he warned, was often painful, and only a courageous heart could survive the ordeal. Professor Reed hinted at an ancient ritual that might break the journal's hold, a ceremony known as the ritual of release. This rite required the owner to face the recorded fears head-on, to transcribe them into a separate, consecrated book, and then to burn the journal in a sacred fire, thus releasing the grip of the dark magic. Evelyn was both terrified and relieved by the possibility of breaking free from the journal's curse. With trembling resolve, she decided that the next full moon would be the night of her reckoning, a night when she would confront every fear inked upon those haunted pages. As the full moon ascended into a sky of inky blackness, Evelyn prepared for the ritual in a small clearing near an ancient stone circle, a place that Professor Reed had assured her was blessed by protective energies. She gathered the necessary items: a second journal with pristine blank pages bound in white leather, a vial of blessed oil, and a bundle of sage, dried and pungent with the promise of purification. Yet as she set up the sacred space, doubt gnawed at her. Could she truly confront the vast depths of her own terror? Would the ritual bring catharsis, or would it unleash even darker forces? The journal at her side seemed to pulse in the moonlight, as if urging her to proceed. With a deep breath, Evelyn opened her cursed journal and began to read aloud the most haunting entries. The words spilled forth like incantations, and each sentence was a mirror reflecting her inner torment. The wind seemed to carry the sound of her voice into the night, echoing against the ancient stones. In the flickering glow of a solitary candle, she took the blank journal and began to write, transcribing in her own hand every fear, every nightmare that the cursed journal had recorded. With each word, she felt as if a heavy burden was lifting from her shoulders, as if by naming her terror, she was diminishing its power. The ritual was an exorcism of sorts, a reclaiming of her own narrative from the clutches of an object that had once dictated her emotional life. As she wrote, spectral images seemed to dance at the edge of her vision. She saw herself as a frightened child, lost in a labyrinth of uncertainty. She saw faces of those she had lost, twisted by sorrow and regret. And she saw shadows of doubt that had haunted her steps for years. The process was agonizing, each revelation a painful reminder of wounds left unhealed. Yet with every written word, the room seemed to grow lighter, the oppressive weight of her fears slowly receding. When the last word was written, Evelyn closed the new journal and took a moment to let silence fill the clearing. She then opened the cursed journal one final time and recited a prayer of forgiveness, a plea to the forces that had bound her so tightly, asking for mercy and the strength to be free. With tears streaming down her face, she set the cursed journal atop a pyre of dry wood arranged in the center of the stone circle. The sage smoldered beside it, sending fragrant wisps of smoke into the cool night air. Then with a trembling hand, she ignited the pyre. Flames leaped eagerly, consuming the pages, the ink, and the dark magic that had held her hostage for so long. As the cursed journal burned, the air filled with a low, mournful sigh, as if the very spirit of her fears was being released into the ether. The flames danced, reflecting in her tearful eyes until the journal was nothing more than ash, carried away on the gentle breeze. In the quiet hours after the ritual, as the first blush of dawn painted the sky in soft pastels, Evelyn felt a profound change within her. The incessant whisper of her fears had quieted to a gentle murmur, no longer dominating her thoughts or haunting her dreams. In its place was a space, a calm, empty canvas upon which she could begin to write a new chapter of her life. The blank journal she had filled during the ritual now served as a testament to her journey, Its pages bore not only the recounting of her fears, but also the story of her courage in the face of them. She carried that journal with her as a reminder that to acknowledge one's deepest terrors is to reclaim one's power, to transform despair into a stepping stone toward healing. In the days that followed, Evelyn found herself opening up to the world in ways she had never dared before. She began to share her experiences with close friends and even started speaking at local gatherings about the importance of facing one's inner darkness. Her story, raw and unfiltered, resonated with many who too had been haunted by the shadows of their past. The curse of the journal had, in a cruel twist, become the catalyst for her transformation. What had once been an object of dread was now a symbol of renewal, a tangible record of the day she chose to stand up to her fears and declare that they would no longer dictate her life. Years later, Evelyn's life had taken on a new meaning. She became a mentor to those struggling with their own inner demons, offering guidance and compassion to anyone who felt overwhelmed by the weight of their unspoken fears. Her once solitary existence blossomed into a network of support and understanding, a community of souls who had learned that the darkest parts of themselves could be transformed into sources of strength. In time, Evelyn compiled her experiences and insights into a book titled Ink of the Soul, a work that interwove the narrative of the cursed journal with practical wisdom on overcoming fear. The book became a beacon for many, a reminder that even the most harrowing nightmares could be faced and overcome. The memory of the journal that once wrote its owner's fears faded into legend, a story told by those who had witnessed the transformation of a life once shackled by terror. For every person who picked up Ink of the Soul, there was a spark of hope, an understanding that the journey into darkness, however painful, could lead to a rebirth into light. Evelyn's journey taught her and those around her that fear, when confronted, is not a permanent prison, but a temporary state. One that can be overcome with courage, compassion, and the willingness to embrace the truth of one's own heart. On quiet mornings, when the dew still clung to the blades of grass and the sky was painted with the soft hues of a new day, Evelyn would often sit by her window with her journal in hand. In those moments of stillness, she reflected on the long, winding path that had led her from a life of silent torment to one of authentic, if imperfect, hope. She knew that the journey was never truly over. Fear would sometimes creep back into the corners of her mind, but now she possessed the tools to face it. Wisdom born from the ashes of a cursed past, in a heart that had learned that even in the darkness, there lies the promise of a new dawn. Thus, the story of the journal that wrote its owner's fears endures, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of confronting one's innermost terrors. In every page that had been filled, in every fear that had been transmuted into hope, there was a reminder that we all have the power to rewrite our own destinies. Long ago, before the memories of Nightfall Haven were marred by despair, the town was known as Aurora's Edge, a vibrant settlement that basked in the glow of the sun. It was said that the land was blessed by a benevolent deity of light who ensured that each day began with radiant promise. But then, a tragedy unfolded that would change everything. A revered town elder, whose name has been lost to time, betrayed his people by sacrificing the town's sacred relic, a golden medallion believed to be a symbol of the divine light, in a misguided attempt to secure personal power. The gods, enraged by this betrayal, cursed the town. From that day forward, the skies would remain dark, and the sun would never rise again. The curse was not merely a matter of failing light. It was a profound metaphysical wound that robbed Aurora's Edge of hope and color, plunging it into perpetual twilight. Over time, the curse transformed Aurora's Edge into Nightfall Haven, a town where the glow of the sun was replaced by the cold luminescence of moonlight and the eerie radiance of starlight. The once fertile fields turned barren, and the vibrant hues of nature were muted into shades of blue, gray, and black. The townsfolk whispered of ancient grief echoing through the streets, and many believed that the darkness itself had become a living entity, watching, judging, and sometimes even protecting them. Despite the unending gloom, the people of Nightfall Haven persevered. Their lives, though touched by melancholy, were rich with traditions and resilience. Each citizen bore the marks of the curse, a quiet stoicism in their eyes, a determined calm in their hearts, and a deep understanding of the beauty that could be found in darkness. There was Miriam, a kind-hearted baker whose oven still produced bread with a faint, comforting warmth. Old Tobias, the town clockmaker, whose intricate timepieces ticked out the rhythms of life despite the absence of sunrise. And young Elian, whose dreams were as vivid as the legends of old, carrying an unwavering belief that one day the sun might return. In Nightfall Haven, daily routines were structured not by the rise and fall of the sun, but by the subtle changes in the ambient glow of the sky. When the faint blue light of the pre-dawn hour emerged, it signified the start of the day, a time when work began, when children would make their way to school, and when the town's community gathered for morning rituals. The citizens learned to appreciate the beauty of the night, the gentle silver of the moon, the silent dance of the stars, and the quiet majesty of the darkened landscape. Artists painted with hues of midnight and indigo, and musicians composed ballads that celebrated both the pain of lost light and the tender hope of renewal. Among the aged manuscripts in the town's dilapidated library, a prophecy was discovered, a cryptic verse that spoke of a time when the curse might be undone if the people could reunite the sacred relic that had been sacrificed centuries ago. According to the faded parchment, the relic, a golden medallion of unparalleled radiance, had been shattered into fragments and scattered far and wide. Only by retrieving these pieces and restoring them to the altar of the old temple, hidden deep within the forest beyond the town, could the curse be broken and the sun restored. The prophecy ignited a spark within the hearts of many, but none were more determined than a young historian named Leora Valente. Raised on stories of a time when light bathed the world, Leora had spent her life yearning for a taste of that lost brilliance. With the prophecy as her guide, she vowed to embark on a quest to recover the relic fragments and bring about the dawn that had been lost to her people. Leora did not set out alone. She gathered a fellowship of brave souls, each with their own reasons for wanting to see the sun rise once more. Among them were Darian, a former warrior whose valor had been tempered by the relentless darkness, determined to redeem his past transgressions. Seraphine, a mystic with an uncanny ability to read the hidden language of the night, who believed that the cure lay not just in the relic, but in understanding the curse itself. Jonas, an ingenious inventor who fashioned contraptions to harness the scant light that managed to seep through the perpetual twilight. And Mira, a healer whose gentle touch and compassionate spirit had comforted many in the darkness, and who dreamed of a world bathed in natural light once again. Together they forged a plan to travel to the ancient forest, locate the long-forgotten temple, and piece together the relic before the curse could claim them all. The path to the temple was perilous. The forest that lay between Nightfall Haven and the sacred altar was a labyrinth of twisted ancient trees, haunted by spectral voices and restless spirits. The deeper the fellowship ventured, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. It was as if the very air was heavy with sorrow, the trees bending under the weight of centuries of lost hope. The group encountered many trials along the way. Eerie lights dancing at the edge of their vision, paths that seemed to shift when not directly observed, and the persistent feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. Yet with every obstacle, their resolve grew stronger. Guided by Seraphine's cryptic insights and Jonas's ingenious devices, they pressed forward, their journey a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming darkness. After many arduous days, the fellowship finally emerged into a clearing where the remnants of the ancient temple lay crumbling and overtaken by nature. Ivy and moss clung to the stone walls, and statues of long-forgotten deities stood as silent guardians of a lost era. In the center of the ruins, an altar, once resplendent with golden radiance, was now dull and broken, its surface scarred by time and neglect. Leora felt a profound sense of destiny as she approached the altar. Here, the prophecy said, lay the key to restoring the sun. The group began their search for the relic fragments, guided by subtle clues left in the temple's inscriptions and the whispers of the forest spirits. In a secluded chamber beneath the temple, hidden behind a false wall of ivy, the fellowship discovered the first fragment, a small glowing shard of what once was the golden medallion. Dubbed the Ember of Hope, the shard pulsed with a gentle warmth that belied its ancient origins. However, retrieving it was not without cost. As Darian reached out to take the fragment, a spectral guardian emerged, a figure clad in ethereal armor, a remnant of the temple's once proud protectors. After a tense confrontation that tested their courage and resolve, the guardian acknowledged the purity of their intent and allowed Darian to claim the ember. With the fragment secured, the group felt a surge of optimism, a fleeting reminder that even in the deepest darkness, hope could still burn bright. The next leg of the journey led them to a mist-covered glade at the edge of the forest. There, beneath the twisted boughs of an ancient willow, lay the second fragment, a delicate, shimmering tear of pure gold. Known as the Tear of Remembrance, it was said to embody the collective sorrows of the past and the yearning for redemption. Mira, whose heart was as compassionate as it was resilient, was the one chosen to retrieve it. As she gently cradled the fragment, vivid visions of lost loved ones and forgotten memories flooded her mind. Though the pain was intense, Mira recognized that these memories were also the threads that bound the people of Nightfall Haven together. With newfound strength, she embraced the sorrow and carefully secured the fragment, vowing to use its power to heal the wounds of the town. The final fragment, known as the Whisper of Renewal, was hidden in the ruins of a long-abandoned archive within the temple complex. It lay concealed in a labyrinth of crumbling passages, its presence detectable only by the soft, almost musical hum it emitted, a sound that resonated with the promise of rebirth. Jonas's inventive mind and Seraphine's mystical insight guided them through the treacherous corridors. In a chamber filled with relics of knowledge and faded murals, they finally discovered the fragment, a slender, luminous sliver of gold that seemed to vibrate with energy. As Jonas carefully lifted it, the air around him shimmered, and for a brief moment, the oppressive weight of darkness seemed to lift, replaced by the gentle murmur of a distant dawn. With the three fragments in their possession, the fellowship returned to Nightfall Haven. The journey had changed them, and with each step, they carried not only the relics, but the lessons learned from their trials, the resilience of hope, the power of memory, and the promise of renewal. Under the guidance of the ancient texts and the wisdom of the town's elders, they prepared for the ritual of restoration, a sacred ceremony meant to reunite the fragments and break the curse that had long smothered their world. The ritual was to be held in the central square of Nightfall Haven, a place that once gleamed with sunlight and laughter. Now it was a somber stage, bathed in the dim light of perpetual twilight. The townsfolk gathered in silence, their eyes filled with longing for the lost radiance of the sun. At the heart of the square, an altar was erected, its surface etched with ancient symbols of balance and rebirth. Leora, standing before the assembly with the fragments carefully placed in a ceremonial tray, recited the incantations passed down through generations, a litany of hope and contrition meant to appease the gods of old and mend the broken covenant between light and dark. Darian, Mira, Jonas, and Seraphine each contributed a personal token of their journey, reminders of the hardships endured and the victories won over despair. As the final words of the incantation echoed through the square, the fragments began to glow, first separately, then in unison. A brilliant beam of light burst forth from the assembled relic, slicing through the ever-present darkness and momentarily igniting the faces of the townsfolk with wonder. For one miraculous instant, as the light reached its zenith, the curse seemed to falter. The skies, long shrouded in perpetual dusk, trembled with the promise of dawn. Though the transformation was subtle, a change in the intensity of the twilight, a softening of the oppressive gloom, it was enough to kindle hope in the hearts of every lost soul present. In the days and months following the ritual, Nightfall Haven began to transform. The curse did not vanish entirely. Old wounds, after all, do not heal overnight, but the balance of light and shadow began to shift. The perpetual twilight deepened into a gentle dusk that gradually gave way to moments of clarity and warmth. The people found themselves looking up at a sky that, on rare occasions, seemed to shimmer with the faint promise of sunrise. The fields, once barren and shrouded in gloom, slowly responded to the newfound hope. Crops that had withered for generations began to show signs of life, and the air, though still cool, carried the faint scent of blossoms and renewal. In the hearts of the townsfolk, a quiet optimism took root, a belief that one day the sun might indeed rise. For Callum, Leora, and their brave companions, the journey was a profound transformation. They had ventured into darkness and emerged forever changed, their souls tempered by hardship and illuminated by hope. Their story, passed down from generation to generation, became the cornerstone of Nightfall Haven's new identity, a town that had known only despair, but now dared to dream of a future bathed in light. The relic, now reassembled and enshrined in the town's central temple, served as a constant reminder that even the darkest curses can be challenged, and that every lost soul can find its way home. The gate to renewal had been opened by the courage of those who were once lost, and through their collective struggle, a community was reborn. Years later, as the legend of Nightfall Haven evolved into a tale of resilience and hope, its people continued to honor the memory of the journey that had restored a part of their light. Elderly storytellers recounted the adventures of Callum, Leora, and the fellowship around crackling fires on cool starlit nights. Their words spoke of a time when the curse of endless dusk was broken by a single, unified effort. A moment when the lost discovered that hope was not found in the absence of light, but in the defiant persistence of the human spirit. On quiet mornings, when the horizon hinted at the possibility of a new dawn, villagers gathered in the town square to celebrate with songs and dances that echoed the bittersweet beauty of their rebirth. Children whose eyes shone with dreams of a brighter future played beneath the ancient temple where the relic was enshrined, a beacon of the eternal promise that even in a town where the sun once never rose, light could be reborn. As twilight gave way to a new era, Nightfall Haven stood as a testament to the transformative power of confronting one's deepest darkness and daring to reclaim the light. The journey of the lost had become the legacy of the found, and every soul who once wandered in despair now carried within them the seed of a new beginning.